Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So the biggest reveal in Day 3 of Star Wars Celebration in London was not on the schedule, but we got an announcement about it 2 days ago. The official EA account said that there would be a gameplay trailer dropping at Celebration today on Sunday, but there's no panel scheduled for any of the stages or anything like that. It just turned out that as they did with Anaheim, there was an event that happened at the Star Wars Celebration live stream situation, which is also, a whole stage set up on the exhibition floor with all the vendors and the props and all that fun stuff. So Stig Asmussen, who directed Fallen Order and Survivor, and Cameron Monaghan, who plays Cal Kestis in both of those games, they came out for an interview with Anthony Carboni and then led into a very coy, do you want to see a trailer situation? So they released the new gameplay trailer. They talked about various things going on, and we will get into that in more detail in our bonus episode, our deep dive, because that is the biggest news of the day. But I can tell you, at least for now, is that it's been promoted to us as a darker and more emotional story. We're going to get deeper into their heads, and they didn't have to do as much of the heavy lifting introducing us to these characters. So yeah, that allows them to do a little bit more with the overall storytelling and gameplay situation, and ultimately Cal basically has to bring the band back together for some mission, the parameters of which we don't necessarily understand just yet. The only other reveals today really came out of the Dark Horse Comics panel and the Lucasfilm Publishing panel. There was a little something out of the Disney Parks panel where they said that the Star Tours rides will be getting new planets added, and they're not necessarily planets that we've seen before in Star Wars, so that's fun. There was no new news out of the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge panel, which was a fun panel anyway. Nothing new out of the Obi-Wan panel. No word on the Season 2. Kathleen Kennedy said in a recent interview that it's not an active development, but she would never say never about it. And the Villains of the Sequel Trilogy panel, despite having that 11 a.m. headline situation, that was not the subject of any new content or storytelling reveal either. For Lucasfilm Publishing, the only non-High Republic reveals were on the fiction side, that we found out what two of the stories would be in From a Certain Point of View, which is the short story collection for Return of the Jedi. Kristen Baver's story is going to be about Cy Snoodles. Adam Christopher's story is going to be about Enric Pride, the guy played by Richard E. Grant in The Rise of Skywalker. And that was it. On the High Republic side of the fiction house, Charles Soule was there. He talked about this character, General Vice, who is in some of the comics he's been writing, and he says that that character will be a major antagonist in Phase 3 of High Republic storytelling, implying, based on the panel, that it would happen in novels, I think. And then Cavan Scott said that there's a character in Path of Vengeance, which is his young adult novel that will be out next month. And he didn't name the character, but said that character would also be a significant antagonist in Phase 3, and it's a new character. The most delightful moment happened when Rosemary Soule, who is Charles Soule's daughter, came up for them to talk about Jedi Brave and True, which is the High Republic children's book that they have coming out later this year. So it features Yoda and Burryaga coaching some younglings about their fears. One's afraid of the ocean, one's afraid of bugs, one's afraid of being alone. It talks about Burryaga being afraid of heights when he was young, and there are a lot of jokes about how, oh yeah, he was up in a pretty high place when he was on Starlight Beacon, and there were a lot of teasing jokes about the fact that Burryaga's fate is currently unknown, and High Republic fans are up in arms in the best way about that, because they want to know what his fate was, and obviously want him to have survived that whole calamity. They also announced on the reference book side of things, or the nonfiction side of things, I guess, that there would be a Secret of the Wookiees book coming out, and Michael Siglain, who was moderating the panel, implied that there would be other secrets books coming out later, and there's also a new cookbook coming, and supposedly one coming after that Siglain said would be from a certain era, quote unquote, and so that strongly implies it would be a High Republic related cookbook. Let's see, there's a book coming out that they said they couldn't talk about very much at all, other than just showing a bare little cover image amidst a sea of other covers, and the title is called Dawn of the Rebellion. It's a visual guide according to Amy Rickow, but there's going to be more revealed about that at San Diego Comic-Con at the earliest. And then for the Dark Horse Comics panel, that's the last thing where there was anything new coming out of things, and pretty much I think the new stuff is all High Republic. They did talk about Tales from the Death Star, which is Cavan Scott's latest Halloween creation that's coming out. I don't know if it's been talked about previously anywhere, but it's, all stories that take place within the life and death span of the Death Star, as Cavan Scott put it. And across the Dark Horse and Lucasfilm Publishing panels, we find out that Tarkin is depicted on his last day on the Death Star, and that his past is going to catch up with him. And then later on, Cavan Scott said in the publishing panel that it might be, stuff related to what he finds on the other side, if you will. But back to the Dark Horse panel. So we got variant covers for Quest of the Jedi, which is Claudia Gray's Phase 2 one-shot, which apparently takes place earlier than anything else so far in High Republic chronological storytelling. And there's something in there called Echo Stones that we might want to pay attention to for future storytelling. We got information about the Nameless Terror from George Mann, about how the Jedi and the Path crash onto a planet together, and the Path were transporting nameless eggs. And as George Mann said, when you have eggs, they hatch, and so that's obviously going to be a huge problem for the Jedi there. We got to see the covers of all 8 issues of the High Republic Adventures by Daniel Jose Older, which then also confirms that there will only be 8 issues of the High Republic Adventures, of which issues 5 and 6 take place concurrent with the Battle of Jeddah, and then 7 and 8 lead us into and go into Path of Vengeance territory. And then 2 more things for you. So in the Free Comic Day release that's happening in May, there's going to be a High Republic story called Starlight Coda, which features Daniel Jose Older's character Lula Talasola trying to investigate survivors of the Starlight Beacon calamity, and that's going to get included in one of a 2-volume set of all Phase 1 High Republic comic stories. It's going to be published by Dark Horse, even though many of those stories were originally published by IDW. Somehow they worked that out. And they also revealed a not final cover for the very first High Republic Adventures issue in Phase 3, and it features Zine and Quart on the cover. And that's pretty much all the news that's fit to print about Day 3 of Star Wars Celebration here in London. And so from the cozy confines of my hotel room on Canary Wharf, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.